welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted, as always, to be joined by Danny and Elliot. This is the big fight breakdown for the undisputed light heavyweight title fight between Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol, taking place in Saudi Arabia on October the 12th. If you enjoy this video, please do leave a comment, please do leave a like, and please do subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. We do a lot of content, whether it's fight previews, interviews, fight reviews, weigh-in reactions, betting tips. We do it all. So please do subscribe to this channel. It's very much appreciated. Gents, what a fight we've got. Arguably the fight of the year, many would say, and one to really, really look forward to. And we are here to break it down. Who has the better resume out of these two guys? Both undefeated. Obviously, Bivol, look, he's got that victory over the one and only Canelo Alvarez, doesn't he? Whereas Beterbiev is stopped every one of his opponents. Those opponents obviously include Callum Smith, and Anthony Artur throws some British interest in there. Elliot, I'll go to you first. I know it's a tricky one. This is going to be a really tricky video to make because there's a lot of things that are hard to call. But who do you think's got the better resume here?
You know what? You look at obviously Bivol with the standout, I suppose, win on his. It could be maybe Canelo, and obviously he's got that victory over Ramirez as well. But I think Beterbiev, frankly, Beterbiev for me is the one I lean towards. I wasn't Callum Smith's Callum Smith, but some people say that as a legit win. But I think Yard's a good win. Joe Smith as well was a good win. The Ukrainian lad, I don't even want to pronounce his surname, but that was a good win. And even Callum Johnson as well. So I think, to be honest, he's just got slightly more on his record than Bivol. And I think also you've got to look, like you mentioned there, at the sort of manner of stoppages, the way he stopped everyone. I think, Bivol tends to we've seen him raise his game when he's been in sort of bigger fights or against what he perceives to possibly be tougher opposition, but also coast against guys that you think probably should be beating a bit better. I look at even like Lyndon Arthur. Look at Lyndon Arthur maybe going against someone like Beterbiev. I think it'd be another stoppage victory there as well. So it's the manner and also the name. So it's Beterbiev for me as a stronger resume.
No, fantastic. Look, I think saw him last time at the beginning of the year in an impressive performance against Callum Smith. I think one that speaks out to me as well was the victory over Joe Smith Jr. a couple of years back, and a 2-round job, and I've never seen someone get destroyed, quite frankly, in that sort of space of time in a boxing ring at world level. Danny, what's your thoughts on this? Do you go along with what Elliot Griggs said as Beterbiev got the better resume?
I would definitely agree that Beterbiev has dealt with people in a much more conclusive fashion. I mean, you look at mutual opponent in Joe Smith Jr., as you mentioned, Beterbiev destroyed him in a couple of rounds, whereas Bivol had a fairly competitive decision victory over him and actually got rocked in that fight. In terms of pure name value in the resume, I think it is really, really close. The best win out of the pair of them is Bivol's win over Canelo. Beterbiev's best win is probably Gvozdyk. I would argue Bivol maybe has the slightly deeper resume. You look at the Gilberto Ramirez win, who's since gone on to become a world champion up at cruiserweight. Even Jean Pascal back in 2018, he was still a decent fighter. Solon Barrera, decent fighter. Craig Richards, Lyndon Arthur, probably European level fighters at best, but there's more depth, I think. And then when you factor that in with the win over Canelo, which I know we look back and say the weight played a factor, but Canelo was a massive favourite going into that fight. I think he was in terms of betting odds, 1-6. So I think it's more hindsight where people maybe try and not discredit that win, but put it down more to weight, whereas I don't think anyone was saying that before time. So I would actually lean Bivol, in my opinion, in terms of pure names, although if there was a visual representation of what had happened in the ring, I would say Beterbiev is definitely much more impressive.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, isn't it, when you got two guys who are undefeated, both guys, it feels like neither of them has really been that close to losing as well, and they've both got quite different resumes as well. And it'll be interesting to see who the two of them kind of go on to face for the rest of their careers, which is something we'll get onto a little bit later. Who's the favourite here, lads? I feel like this is a silly question because I'm not sure there really is a favourite, but I want to see what both of you have to say. I had a quick look at some betting odds earlier. The betting platform that I usually use, both fighters were 10-11, so that kind of reiterates my point that there's not really a favourite. I've gone to another betting platform that has Bivol as a favourite, and you can get a price of Beterbiev to win the fight at 23-20. So not all, but most platforms seem to have Bivol as a very slight favourite. Danny, you're the betting expert amongst the three of us. Who's the favorite for this one?
I don't know about the expert. My profit and loss might tell you slightly differently. Who, who's the favourite? I can understand why some bookmakers may shade Bivol. I think that's potentially due to the injury, which I'm sure is a talking point we're going to discuss. And then Beterbiev's age. I feel like Beterbiev's age keeps getting brought up, and then he keeps putting in as good, if not better, performances in the fight before. So I can understand why that's factored in. Who do I have as a favourite? I know what my pick is. I don't
Okay.
necessarily want to give it away. Let's say in terms of making pre-fight odds, I would really struggle to make a favourite. I can understand why they've gone Bivol though.
Yeah, look, I think you mentioned there's the Beterbiev, the injury to Beterbiev's age. I feel like I always think that's quite. You see people predict fights because of someone's age, and you see bookmakers put someone down because of their age. And I've always thought it's so lazy to do that rather than look at kind of what they've done in their careers, what they've done in their recent careers. There's Beterbiev's inactivity as well. If you look at the last couple of years, he's not been a hugely active fighter. So yeah, I can understand it as well. Elliot, what are your thoughts on the favourite situation?
My initial thoughts were Danny did a fantastic job there, actually, to bring the factors into play without giving his pick away. And I think I also agree. Actually, I wonder how much the injury plays a part in some of those as well. And I think the age thing, I know what you mean. The age thing it tends to be a bit of a cheap way to look at it, but equally, I mean, athletes tend to be going a bit longer into their careers for various reasons now. So maybe 39 is not what it once was, but still, I think it's also, I'm 30 plus myself, and it's also not 29 either. So it's kind of, it's just a bit. I can understand why that comes in, and I think 39 versus 33. Looking at 33, going that should be your peak as an athlete, really, or maybe even beyond that slightly when some people are discussing it. So I would lean also towards Bivol if I was a favourite, but equally, you look at the KO percentages, you look at the opponents he's fought and the way he's dealt with them as well. I think 10 to 11 is fairly common sense for both for both fighters. Really, I really struggle. I really see it as a sort of 50-50 as well. So I can't make any sort of argument against what's already been out there in the betting sphere.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we'll see kind of maybe how odds develop. I think another factor is kind of how easily does Beterbiev still make 175? We'll see that when the guys weigh in. So there's a few factors here, and it'll be interesting to see if those odds change at all. Interesting talking point now, gents. I want to speak to you about in boxing. Look, I feel like when you've got the involvement of the Saudis, the involvement of Turkey Al Sheikh, you get what some might call kind of fantasy fights, and in terms of fighters moving up and down divisions. There's obviously been talk of Terence Crawford and Canelo Alvarez this year. There's been talk of Nairo Inoue against Gervonta Davis, as mental as that sounds as well. And after this fight, there could be kind of similar talk about someone moving up to cruiserweight, someone from super middleweight moving back up to light heavyweight for more kind of super fights in the sport. Bivol and Beterbiev, what else do you think these guys are going to do with their careers, win or lose? Beterbiev, 39. This could be his lot. He could retire after this fight. We don't know how much longer he's got left. Bivol, not a young fighter, but possibly doesn't have much wear and tear on his body, so it could go on for some time. Elliot, I'll go back to you because I just think that this fight's happening in Saudi, and I just think there's going to be more super fights. Super fights possibly going to be kind of rumored about for the winner or the loser of this fight. So I'll let your mind kind of have its way and kind of discuss what you might see from both fights in the next couple of years.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think to be honest, it's about kind of like you were saying. It's about kind of money fights, really. I kind of see them kind of chasing, especially if you're Beterbiev. You obviously kind of known about in boxing circles, but not necessarily like mainstream circles. Don't necessarily know who Beterbiev was, even though he's very exciting to watch and absolutely wrecking ball. So I can see whatever fight sort of makes sense. A fantasy fight makes sense for Saudi sticking him in with. I mean, you look at like Benavidez going up to the division as well. Would you like to get in there and fight one of these guys? Bivol, you look at. I mean, Canelo's obviously calling him out again. As you say, he might go up there for a rematch with him as well. That's obviously a big money fight. Would he take that possibly? I mean, I could even, depending on how this fight goes, to be honest, you could even see these two tied up with each other maybe again, depending on how it ends. So yeah, it's hard to call just because that Saudi money does bring the sort of fantasy fight potential into it. But for the next year, I maybe see them either maybe tied up again, or maybe the Canelo fight, or maybe Beterbiev just going any which way where the money goes, essentially.
Yeah, look, I think that's a good point, and just we'll have to wait and see until this fight's done and over with. But I just think you're going to have kind of big super fights being spoken about. Danny, what's your view on this? Because I feel like for Bivol, there's possibly that Canelo rematch down the line. I feel like Beterbiev, I do think that's a fight that could be rumored for him as well to fight Canelo. It's a possibility of moving up to cruiserweight and trying to win more world titles there. There's Jai Vitara at cruiserweight, who's to say the winner of this fight couldn't move up and challenge him. What are your thoughts on kind of the fights you could possibly see happening for both fighters moving forward?
I think if Bivol wins, you could very well see the rematch with the Canelo at 175. I know Bivol had previously said if he was to rematch Canelo, he would want it at 168 for Canelo's titles, and saying that was before the Saudi involvement. And I know things between Turkey and Canelo don't look all rosy at the minute, but I'm sure money talks, and that would be a huge fight for undisputed at light heavyweight. So I could definitely see that happen if Bivol wins. In terms of what I would want to see, if Beterbiev wins, I would love to see him go up and fight Opataya. I think not having to make 175 pounds would be good for him. Opataya is not the biggest cruiserweight in the world. He's not as big as Alexander Usyk was before he moved up. He would be taller than Beterbiev and probably would be the slightly bigger man, but Beterbiev's so much more proven, and I think, as we've mentioned, at his age, not having to boil down to 175, because it does seem to be a really bad weight cut for him, I think would do him a lot of good. You touched on Benavidez. I could definitely see that fight happening as well for either of them. I would say, though, that if Bivol wins, the Canelo fight is probably most likely. I have a feeling if Beterbiev wins, I would not be surprised if that Opataya fight happened either.
It's exciting, isn't it? 'Cause there's so many massive fights that you feel like are possible now, whereas kind of a couple of years ago it would have been silly just because of money, politics, to kind of have these sort of conversations. But now they feel a bit more realistic. All right, gents, we've got a decent amount of time left, so we're going to do predictions. If you want to go into a bit of detail about why you're predicting X fighter, please feel free to do so. But I don't know, I feel like this is possibly the most 50-50 fight we've ever probably done a video on, so it's particularly tricky. Any volunteers and who wants to go first?
I'll go first, because otherwise I'll get accused of copying Danny. Which, to be honest with you, I would like to have done, but I've pushed my neck on the line. But I think I'm going to go out there and say that I'm actually edging slightly towards Bivol in this one, and I'm saying slightly. I think Beterbiev's obviously relentless. Obviously the stoppages on his record. I'm looking at it. I am kind of looking at it a little bit with the injury. I know there's possibly been some rumours that the injury might have been overinflated as well. But I'm just looking at Bivol on his day, just gorgeous to watch as well. And I think, will Beterbiev stop Bivol? I'm not going to. He might do. Obviously, I can't sit here and say he won't with 20 knockouts, but I'm not. Yeah. I'm leaning towards the fact that he won't be able to stop Bivol. And I think Bivol just motivated, and with his boxing ability and how we sort of saw him fight when he fought Canelo as well. Obviously, it's a different fight. Obviously, fighting Beterbiev, but I just think the actual ability wise, I think he'd be able to grind out a points victory over Beterbiev, frankly. But I think it'd be close, even if it was points. I'm still looking like very close, maybe sort of 7-5, sort of really sort of 115, 113 kind of points. That's how close I think this is. But I just edge ever so slightly, just sort of 51-49 towards Bivol. Danny said Beterbiev now and ruin my day, but that's where I'm going with, I think, at the moment.
It's a tricky one, yeah. I won't be accused of copying Danny as well, so I'm gonna go next. I am going to disagree. I'm going to go for Beterbiev to win this fight by stoppage. It's a really tough one, and you can make fantastic cases for both. And I think one thing about this fight is I wonder how many people who there will be who will confidently be picking someone who will say, yeah, I'm pretty confident this guy's going to win. I just think Beterbiev, he's one of the most relentless fighters I've ever seen. He's someone who carries power throughout the 12 rounds. He stops people early, stops people late, and I just think sooner or later he will get to Bivol. When I know, Danny, I know you've seen Beterbiev in the flesh. I've been kind of lucky enough to do that as well. And when he hits someone, it's more of a thud than a punch. And I just think nobody's been able to withstand that power yet. And I'm not sure Bivol will be as well for 12 rounds, but we shall see. It's going to be a fantastic fight. Danny, no pressure. It's 1-1. What is your prediction for Beterbiev versus Bivol?
I actually am fairly confident in who I'm picking. I would, if Artur Beterbiev is at his best, I'll be shocked if he does not stop Dmitry Bivol. I could actually see it if he's at 80, 90%, maybe in like a competitive 3, 4 rounds. And I could see Beterbiev smashing him to bits, to be honest, inside 8, 9 rounds. I think Bivol is an excellent boxer, like really fluid with his punches, but he's not this like Floyd Mayweather, Pernell Whitaker. He gets hit a lot in all of his fights, no matter who he fights. That fella, the Libyan fella he fought last time out, he was getting tagged a lot by him, hit a lot by Craig Richards, hit a lot by Joe Smith, rocked by Joe Smith. And yeah, if you're getting tagged by them, you just can't get tagged by Beterbiev because it's not like a one punch Deontay Wilder power. It's never been that, but it breaks you down. And that's why I could see 3 or 4 rounds of like nip and tuck, not nip and tuck, but a sort of give and take, both land an equal amount of shots. Because Bivol does throw a lot of shots, but Bivol's shots aren't going to have the effect on Beterbiev that Beterbiev's are going to have on Bivol. And after 3 or 4 rounds, I think he'll feel them shots. If the only caveat is Beterbiev's leg. If he has the legs he had against Callum Smith, I don't see it as much of a contest, to be honest. He was brilliant that night. His feet were unbelievable. Smith didn't know what to do with him. He was constantly in front of him, and he just kept motoring, kept going through the gears as the rounds went on, and his output seemed to increase. And I can't see Bivol keeping him off him. So yeah, I think the injury is a concern. I'd like to think they wouldn't be jumping in if they didn't feel he was at or close to his best. So yeah, I'm going Beterbiev to stop him 8 to 10 rounds.
Okay, Elliot, I'm going to give you the chance to change your mind if you want to.
No. I guess the only thing we'll say is we will see, and then if that does happen, you won't see me on any sort of review content. But I think I can't disagree in many ways with Danny. Like, if Beterbiev stops Bivol, it wouldn't equally. I wouldn't be sitting there shocked and wide eyed. I'd be kind of like fair play. So for me, it's going into it. It's 50-50. So whatever happens, if it doesn't look like Danny said with the fight previous, where sometimes when people sit there and go, oh, like Bivol and Alvarez, you look at it afterwards and go, oh, like Canelo wasn't that good, or Bivol, you kind of like, you put meaning to fights only after they've happened, but this is truly going in as a 50-50. So no matter what happens, I'll be excited, and also I can see it happening. So yeah, fair play to Danny, and we'll see what happens on the night.
Fantastic. Right. Really enjoyed that, gents. Looking forward to it. It's the fight of the year in many people's eyes, and we will see what happens. Once again, if you've enjoyed this video, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Danny, Elliot, good to be joined by both of you. I will see both of you again very soon.